might start alarm calling us because he's the scolder. Yeah, they're doing really well. You know, every day is a new day. We see them, you know, becoming better flyers, more proficient flyers through this dense landscape, because especially, you know, when they're in the aviary, they're not subjected to this dense landscape, you know, high forests, high trees, ferns.
So far, I think our monitoring team has been doing a great job finding the birds every day, and the birds themselves have been making fantastic progress. We have observations of them foraging on wild fruits. We have observations of them interacting with their natural predators in a way that we think will be indicative of their survival. So overall, we're really pleased.
So we're about 3.5 months from when we released birds in 2017 now. The birds are adjusting well to their new forest home. There's been an incredible, intense effort that has gone into the monitoring and observations of these birds since their release. The hardworking monitoring team has been generating daily information and logging that information, which is then made available to project managers and then is disseminated to the Alala working group. The working group has access to weekly reports about dispersal of the birds, where the birds are spending the most time, how frequently they're feeding, what type of native fruits they're foraging on. And all of this information is really important in helping us guide our decision making and planning for the next release as well. The monitoring team will continue to monitor the birds and provide supplemental food to them for about up to a year or so post-release. So the monitoring team will be continuing to look closely at food consumption, foraging, and how they're adjusting to feeding on their own and in the wild.
As far as their dependency on the supplemental food that we place out for them in the feeders on the landscape, we have seen an anecdotal shift in their use of the feeders. In the beginning of the release, the birds would spend much more time at or around feeders and kind of feeding here and there as they're around the area. But now, as we start to see more movement patterns, more further movements, we see birds coming to feeders much less, but when they do come, they spend a bit more time getting food. And then once they're gone, we won't see a bird at the feeder for oftentimes an hour and a half, 2 hours before the next bird comes back. Whether it be they're starting to explore the landscape more, or whether it be they're finding more food resources on the landscape. It's a question for us to try and answer with our monitoring as we go on.
So similar to any predator-prey interaction, there's a lot that goes on that we don't necessarily see, but the observations that we have made indicate that that the birds do identify EO as a predator, and that they can take evasive action when needed. That doesn't mean that every time a predator is around that they run and flee, which is actually an advantageous set of behaviors for them. This means that they are able to potentially assess the level of danger of a certain situation when predators are around. So we're really pleased.
I approach my staff and mention and kind of motivate them that every day that we wake up, we never know what these birds are going to do next. It's as much of a learning experience for them as it is for us, because we don't know if tomorrow they'll be around the area or if tomorrow might be a day that they make these new flights, and every day we see something new. We see, you know, new behavior every week. We're sticking with the birds, tracking them out on the landscape, trying to get new feeding observations, new behavior observation, and as we're approaching in the coming months the new breeding season, for these birds, they won't actively breed. We predict that we'll start to see new behaviors, and then over time, as other fruiting plants in the landscape start to bear fruit, we hope to see new foraging observations, movement patterns, behavior observation as they're coming into the territories.
We really learned a lot from the 2016 release. We made major revisions to our reintroduction strategy, and so far we have been very pleased and excited about the adjustments and what we've been seeing in the wild. The birds have adjusted very well to their forest home, and it's just been really inspiring for all of us on the project to see and hear Alala in the wild again.